If I like the sound, I don't want to have to try to chase that sound later. I get the right sound up front, and then I commit to that sound. Hi, my name's Sylvia Massy. We're at the Village today recording the Melvins for Mix with the Masters. Really lucky to be here in Studio A, and I love Studio A at the Village because of this fabulous analog console. It's from about 1972-73 era. It's called an 8048 Neve, and the thing that's special about it is it has really good mic preamplifiers and EQ, and the EQ model in this Neve is a 1081 EQ, and there's also a bank of 1073 EQs. At home where I live in Oregon, I have a studio, and I also have an old Neve. It's an 8038 with 1073 EQ, so I'm very familiar with this console. It is also called a split console, and in the 70s, that was a basic way that the consoles were laid out. So I'll give you a little description of what a split console is. In essence, it's two consoles in one. One part of the console is used for microphone inputs and outputs, and in this console, it's this section right here. And then there's another bank of microphone inputs down here also. But the split part of it is that there's a second set of routing, and that's the returns, and this is called a monitor section. And in this Neve, the monitor section is here. So in essence, your microphones will come into the input section, and it starts with the mic preamplifier. And it goes through the EQ. This one is a 1081 EQ. Then it's routed through this fader. You can select the level that you want to send out to your recorder. The recorder is a Pro Tools system here at the Village. So I use these buses here to select what track I want the microphone to go to. Here I've got a whole bunch of microphones prepared for the Melvin session. And there's some fun things, we'll talk about that a little later, some of the fun things that I have set up for this session, because if you're familiar with the Melvins, they're a bit of a crazy, noisy band. And so I've prepared some things that will hopefully please them and please us as we're recording their songs today. So here we go. A little reminder of what we just talked about. Mic pre. The mic comes in here, it goes out the fader, it goes out the bus to the recorder. Then the recorder plays back through the monitor section. So if I go to track 1 on my Pro Tools and I select output 1 is going to return here. So my microphones are over here, the Pro Tools return is here. And that's how we, in the olden days, would do this type of recording. And we're lucky enough to do that today with the Melvins. So let's talk about a few things that I have prepared for the Melvins session today. There are the standard assortment of drum microphones, and I start down here with the kick track. It's a kick drum microphone, and I've chosen a 421 microphone, a Sennheiser 421 microphone for that. And I also have a sub mic set up on that kick drum, and I'll show you that in a minute. It's a homemade jobby made from a speaker. Then we have snare mics. I've set up 3 different snare mics. There's a SM57, which is a Shure mic, on the top head of the snare. There's also an SM81 mic on the top head, but it's a secondary microphone because I have that going through a compressor just to get a snap. And the type of compressor that I'm using to get that snap is a DBX 160, and you'll see over here in a rack. So that I'm blending together with the SM57 Shure to get that snappy sound on the snare. Then I also have a mic underneath the snare. It's a Sennheiser 441 mic, and I have that set up with a phase reverse, and you'll see on the EQ channel here that I've selected the phase reverse, because when two mics are pointing at each other, they'll cancel each other out unless you flip that phase. So it's got a phase reverse prepared. Then we've got our standard hat mic and ride mic. Those are both KM54 Neumann tube mics, and those should be very sweet sounding on the hat and ride cymbals on the drums. On the top of the tom, we're using an AKG C12A, which is a pretty fancy tube mic. It's the predecessor to the AKG 414, if you're familiar with that mic, but this is the tube version. So we're actually using that on the top of the tom for a rich, snappy tone on the top. And then I also have a mic on the bottom of the tom, and that's a 421, also a Sennheiser 421, and they're pointing at each other, so I've got the phase reverse also selected on that bottom mic, because these mics are basically pointed at each other. So we have two toms on this drum kit, and both those toms have the same kind of mic arrangement. Then for the overheads, I have something very special. It's an MS configuration on an AKG C24 mic. The C24 is the stereo version of AKG's C12 mic, and it's hard to find these mics. Luckily, the Village has this mic. It's extremely expensive if you can find one. So we're going to use it today. And what I've done is I've got it set up in an MS configuration. The way I do that is I take one of the capsules and have it pointing straight down over the cymbals, because I'm recording the cymbals with this. Then with the side, I have the other capsule set up for a figure 8 on the sides. And I take that single signal that comes from that figure 8 and I mult it in the patch bay with a phase reverse patch cable. And I've found that reversing the phase in the patch bay is much better than just reversing it on the channel like this. So I'm doing a special setup for that mic to get this really wide picture. And when I worked with Tool on Undertow, that's how we recorded the cymbals on Danny Carey's drum kit. So I'm going to use it again for the Melvins today. Also, we have a pair of U67 mics, which are really nice Neumann tube mics. Those are set up for the room. It's a small room here at the Village, but I think we can make it sound real big with some good quality tube mics and compression. So because I want to play with that compression and play with the room sounds, I'm going to have some extra special types of effect tracks in this recording. One is a mono room mic, and it's the microphone is a special one that I brought. It's a JZ black hole mic, and I'll show it to you in a minute. The mic is set up in front of the drum kit to get the whole picture, and I'll have compression on it. I actually have compression set up right now. It's a distressor. Also, there's a special crush mic set up in front of the drum kit, more inside the drum kit. You'll see that one that is basically over the right side of the kick drum, drummer's perspective. And it's a Shure ribbon mic. It is also being crushed, this time with an Teletronics LA2A compressor.